The data suggests that Toshi might actually overtake Brett and become the number one base coin. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about Toshi. We are going to be comparing it to Brett for a little bit, but we obviously will be diving into the basics, the technical analysis as well. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, before we do that, we know Toshi in recent times has kind of broken out of a certain structure, right? When we take this trend line over here, right? Boom, key point, key point, key point, and boom, we broke out. We can see the reason why we broke out, ladies and gentlemen, is because we were actually running out of time with Toshi, right? We were running out of time. We were running out of space. Now, I did truly believe with all my heart that because I've seen it in many times. Usually, before we go up, we usually go down, sweep a little bit of liquidity, and then we reverse and start going up. This time, though, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of just went straight up. Okay, we kind of just went straight up, but we can see, right? We went from 250 million market cap all the way to almost 500 million. So we almost did 100% in a single day. But we can see the last few days have been kind of slow and they have been selling off. Okay. We can see in terms of the 3 day, right? We did have the best 3 day close in, I mean, literally since this 2025 January moment. And other than that, I mean, that's the second best one. We can see in terms of the weekly candle closes, we also had the second best weekly candle close ever, right? Ever. Now we are retesting on top of this trend line, and we could technically even go lower downwards of 300 billion market cap. So we still have a little bit of space. But what I'm going to really want to see from Toshi is to just mainly hold. We know, ladies and gentlemen, that overall the crypto markets are kind of getting destroyed right now. If we go to the crypto bubbles, right? Boom, right? We can see lots and lots of red, little green, bigger green, but overall lots and lots of red. And if we go to, let's say, top 100 to 200, boom, lots of red in general. So, yeah, it's a very, very sad and rainy day for the crypto markets. But then again, for some people, that just screams opportunity. Now, I will compare this to Brett right now before we jump into more technical analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, we can see that we're at 317 million market cap. Brett is at 420. So they have roughly a 20 million market cap lead, sorry, 100 million market cap lead. But we can see something like Brett, if we go to all time market cap, Brett before has practically hit 2 billion. Okay, it has hit over 2 billion. Toshi, let's just say, okay, we're gonna downplay Toshi a little bit. Let's just say it went to a billion. All right, let's say it went to a billion. So the ratio is actually worse for us in this comparison. But practically, Brett went double the amount. Okay, Brett has practically gone up double the amount. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we are only 100 million market cap away. So listen, there is a very, very good chance that we can overtake Brett. And I'm not even joking, right? I'm not even joking, especially if we go and look at Brett's price action. This thing has been really struggling. I mean, really struggling. The best it's had was practically going upwards of 900 million market cap. But yeah, this thing has been really in the dumps, generally speaking, just kind of going sideways, generally. And it hasn't really done much, right? It hasn't really done much. And like I said, it had a much higher point than us 2 times, 2 times. And the gap between Toshi and Brett is getting smaller and smaller, right? We can see this thing was just at 500 million market cap. Now it's at 420. If the markets continue the way they're going to be going, right? We can even see this go down to 400, 380 million market cap. And obviously Toshi can go down a little bit lower, but Toshi's structure generally just looks better, right? We can even go to another boom like this, and we can just compare it as well as this loads. We are actually, no, this is just fine. We're just going to do Brett like this. So we're going to go boom. There we go. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, right? Look at this structure, right? Look at this kind of sad structure, and then look at Toshi. Toshi, it looks much happier. Okay. I'm not even joking. You might not think there's a difference in the structure, but for me, Toshi does look much more bullish than Brett does, right? And I'm not just here to just glaze Toshi. I'm just saying what I literally see. We kind of see we're just in this sad channel over here. And there's a very good chance Brett can even be going downwards all the way, I would say, even boom, back to 270 or 220 million market cap, right? Kind of in this triangle area, right? We could technically go up here. So maybe let's just say 300 million market cap, but that would be roughly where Toshi is right now. Okay. And the thing is, I've been seeing a lot more hype with Toshi. Even if we go through something like the Brett Twitter page, Toshi's Twitter page is not that far in terms. Ladies and gentlemen, the time to get serious is now. The next few months are going to be the most crucial time of your lives. Okay. We're going to have crypto exploding. And this is the time to get a portfolio review, right? You got to make sure you have the right cryptos. You don't want any old or dead coins, or you don't want anything that can give you little profits, right? So we provide a portfolio review. We've also been smashing it with the high probability meme coins. We hit an 11x, an 8x, and 5.5x in recent times. We also provide a weekly report on the crypto data, on the crypto analysis, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, on other altcoins as well. You get all this and a bunch more other benefits. Highly recommend joining the private community. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make some money. In terms of holders, okay, we can see 112,000, we see 150,000. So yes, again, a little bit of a gap, but nothing too big. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, right, 6 hours ago, 58,000 views. So they get pretty solid views, 87,000 views, almost 200,000 views. They get good views, but you got to realize Toshi does as well, right? Toshi gets pretty good views as well. And especially like these like photos get very good views, and they're nothing that crazy, right? When Toshi actually announces stuff, when they retweet stuff, like 147,000, 88,000, right? Pictures, sure, pictures don't get that much, 20,000. But ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this before. The upside is crazy. I mean, look, 124,000 on a nice announcement. So yes, Brett still has a little bit of a lead. There's no doubt, but the gap is much smaller. The gap is much smaller, ladies and gentlemen. And Brett, really peaked, like I said, 2.3 billion even market cap, which is like 2.2, 2.3 times higher than what Toshi peaked at, and there's only a small difference now. So for me, this is one of those things that just screams, Toshi is going to overtake Brett at one point. I truly do believe that. Like I said, it's nothing personal against Brett holders. They've always been like 1 and 2, but it was always a clear 1 and 2. It was clear that Brett was number one. It was clear that Toshi was number two. And the reason why some people were more fan of a Toshi, like for example me, was just because there was more gain potential, right? Because it was a smaller market cap coin. Okay. But even now, in terms of structure, ladies and gentlemen, we are still, if we look at the structure, when we remove the drawings, right? If we go boom, take it from these highs, take it from these lows, and we flip it, right? We're going to be roughly probably around the 88%. Yeah, we're lower than the 88%. Okay. And usually that's when we want to start seeing cryptos retrace. So this is not that good, right? This is not that good. And we go and look at something like Toshi, right? We're probably roughly around the 50%, maybe a little bit less actually. We go from the top right here, take it to like some of these like the bottoms, like I did. I took it to that literal Brett bottoms. So yeah, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, we're between the 78 and 50. So somewhere in the 60s, right? But Brett is already somewhere going to the 90s of how far it's still down from the all-time high. So, there's much more strength with Toshi. Even if Toshi was just kind of chilling here, it would be around the 78%, or even if it was a little bit higher, it'd be around 75%, while Brett is still under like the 90% retracement from the highs. So that's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Obviously, you have to do your own research. Obviously, I know some people want Toshi to win, some people want Brett to win. At the end of the day, I want both of you guys to win so you guys make a lot of money. But yeah, man, we always knew this is pretty much 1 and 2, and I feel like the I feel like the momentum is looking to be switching, right? The momentum is looking to be switching. Like I said, Brett hasn't really shown anything promising other than just the April and short May pump, and ever since then, it's just been kind of flatline and just going down and down and down. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you guys think Brett is going to end up. Let me know where you guys think Toshi's going to end up. Do you think Toshi will overtake Brett? Right? I showed you some of the data. I showed you the technical analysis. I showed you, the percentages. I showed you how active their communities are and the amount of followers and views they get. Like I said, Brett still has a little bit of that lead, but man, with where Toshi started and where it's at right now, and with where Brett started and where it's at right now, the gap is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Listen, before we end this video, I actually forgot I do have to do the analysis of this, right? We really overall want to see Brett continue, or sorry, Toshi continue to kind of just hold this trend, right? At least this amount. Even if we have a red week this week, that's going to be fine. And the reason why I say that's going to be fine, ladies and gentlemen, because it is ultimately going to be a retest, right? It's ultimately going to be a retest off of this zone. Are we just going to break out and then have a and turn it into a fake out and go lower, or are we going to break out, retest, hold it, and continue to go higher? Obviously, we need a little bit more data and confirmation, but I would really like for this to be holding. Obviously, if the markets were just to go down another 10, 15%, like Bitcoin, for example, which I don't believe that's going to be the case, of course, Toshi is going to suffer because that is just how crypto works. But ladies and gentlemen, overall, Toshi has been looking very, very good. Yes, I know it's down a decent amount from its pump, right? If we go and look at the actual pump itself, right? Correct this a little bit. We are getting downwards of almost the 78 mark, right? So we're roughly in the 60s, right? High 60s. So we're already down like 60, 65% from where we were pumping at. But that's okay, ladies and gentlemen, because the context of the charts do suggest that this is the retest zone, right? This is the retest zone. Even if I do make it more strict based off the body candles, right? We can go down, like I said, up downwards of 300 million market cap, really start going sideways like this, really start going sideways like this, respect, go up higher, right? But let me know what you guys think. I love you guys so, so much. I love the Brett army. I love the Toshi army. Hopefully, well, any of you guys or whoever holds which coin, hope both of you guys find success. Thank you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.